Hello, my name is Hannah. I'm a digital missionary and communications consultant, but recently I joined the Baptist Union, so you may see my name around on various outgoings by the Baptist Union, and I work in the comms team. So I work with the Baptist Union, Methodist Church, URC, Bible Society, Premier Digital, Baptist associations and local churches, not all at the same time, and it's been a number of different projects and different things over the years. So I have an experience of working with lots of different organisations and church sizes and ability levels or interest levels. So I do understand that not everyone is going to be wanting to get straight onto TikTok and do some dancing. So I do understand that. I offer a variety of services, including webinars, speaking such as today, training, consultancy, strategy, content creation, film and photography. So I've worked with the team at Fuelcast as well a couple of times. I have recently, before the summer, graduated from Spurgeon's College in an MA in Digital Theology. So again, I kind of sort of, sometimes people think, oh, it's just because you're a millennial and you like being online that you just want to talk about this. But actually, I have a degree in what I'm talking about kind of thing. So this isn't just some sort of, personal project, but actually it is something that I really do believe is an important space we should be exploring. Now, it's not on the slide because I just realised I have this, but I have on there digital missionary, and very often that sort of people get a bit confused by that. So I wrote this a while ago. Now, I never thought I'd be a missioner. I didn't have a gap year or go abroad on a charity trip with my school, and I haven't had a mission trip with my church. You say missioner, and it conjures images of going away to places vastly different, geographically different, traveling vast distances and getting involved in building schools, hospitals, teaching, playing sports, music, or doing art, or just supporting communities away for weeks, months, or even years. Whilst perhaps it is not the physical or geographical journey that I am meant to take, I think that the bones of what they do is the adventure I want to go on. The more I talk about digital mission, the more I feel God giving me clarity that this is where I'm meant to go. It is a new concept. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I do think that it is a space that we should be exploring. Get your phones out. Find me on social media. You can either find me personally or my sort of work account. That has slightly been vastly neglected lately since joining the BU, and I haven't really had a lot of time on it. But do come and find me and say hello. Sometimes it's good to look at where we are. The reality is that over the last few years, things have changed. The world's changed, culture and community. Church numbers, it seems sort of up and down as to where we are. You know, up until the pandemic or sort of even into it, we were looking at churches' numbers plummeting and things were looking very worrying. Then things like the Quiet Revival report has come out, and that's really encouraging and really exciting. But also I've heard a lot of stories of people saying that's not happening for us. So it's really difficult to say exactly where things are going, but we know that things do need to change. Churches and Sunday mornings are competing with life, work, football, brunch, family commitments, and more. We do have to make things attractional, and we do need to be able to connect with people so that they want to come. And I don't think that this is you have to be online and we shouldn't be meeting in a building. I love coming and seeing people beyond just a square screen. I love being in a place and gathering and worshipping with people. But building an online community and getting better with digital can help the church and the local church and the global church, but in a new and different way. If we think about Moses and how he sort of initially was communicating with people, he had the original tablets. His were stone and they weren't amendable and he couldn't swipe on it or take pictures and stuff, but he had stone tablets. Jesus spoke with groups, both sort of in small groups and in large. I don't know how he did it without a microphone and sort of proper audio support, but he spoke verbally and on site with people. Paul then started in the sort of first remote communications with people, writing letters to the churches. And then sort of skip forward a couple of centuries and you have monks writing on manuscripts, suddenly things that would be able to be replicated and shared more broadly, but also they're very beautiful. There is a sense of creativity and appreciation and beauty with them. We then come forward and we have printing, and suddenly the printing press and the distribution of the Bible means that we're able to reach even more people. It actually impacts culture. Suddenly people are getting more educated. They are able to get they're able to have an opinion and share and communicate and sort of reflect on things rather than just being spoken at. Then we come to the last century and we've had radio, TV. That's enabled a new reach. But still, that's been very sort of broadcast and very one-dimensional, and me speaking to you, but I can't see you because I'm in the radio. Whereas now, the digital reformation, does this allow something new? So a lot of people sort of resist the idea, or I had it resisted to me, sort of that, well, you can't do a prayer evening on Zoom. God's not going to do miracles like over WhatsApp chat. It's not the same thing. Do we think that God's limited to pixels and sort of digital platforms? Do we think the Spirit can't work online? It says where 2 or 3 are gathered. It doesn't say we have to be gathered sort of holding hands and being together. That would have been probably what they sort of imagined when it was written, because that was how their context was. But if 2 or 3 are gathered on Zoom, God can do amazing things. And I think as well, it's not just about the sort of ones and zeros and the technicality of it, but what I really love about digital is the expression and creativity that we allow with it. We have an amazingly creative God. Just look at a sunrise. And for me, I love being able to express my faith through creative content and being able to connect with people in new ways. I think that actually this sort of the breadth of what we have with online does allow us to do a number, does allow us to be creative and do things that probably we haven't been able to do in a church context ever before. So a verse that really meant a lot to me from the start of the pandemic, and it still does, is Esther 4:14. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. So could you imagine if we'd have had the pandemic 20 years ago, which doesn't sound that far away, but actually we did not have the technological advances so freely and accessibly available as we do now. And I'm not saying that sort of, we should have had the pandemic in this time, but actually there are certain things that culture has, our cultural reactions have allowed us to be able to respond to new things for such a time as this. So Patrick's already mentioned it, Matthew 28:19, the Great Commission, go and make disciples of all nations. Again, their context of what they meant was the 4 corners of the world, the global nation. But for me, that doesn't just mean the people who I can see on a map, but the people who I cannot see in the virtual and digital world. The Bible Society came out around June, so it was sort of very quietly kind of released. They did a really awesome report called Bible Society of Digital Nations, and essentially they brought this idea that actually we should see different platforms as different nations, where they have different cultural languages, different cultural markers, different means of communications, different ways of gathering together, and just that we shouldn't see digital as all one thing, but actually there are different nuances within them. So I think, again, this verse has been very powerful to me of going, maybe I don't quite have enough courage to go and speak to someone in my local co-op, or, go and speak to someone on the dog walk. I get quite nervous of sort of, upsetting someone for sort of trying to sort of bring that up. But actually, I'm very comfortable sharing online, and so that is my mission field. Those are the nations that I am meant to go and meet. You don't have to kind of answer this, but it's helpful to just have a think about, and perhaps we can, talk about it later. Thinking actually, how confident are you online? What are things that you struggle with? What platforms are you particularly sort of interested and comfortable with? Where are you now in terms of what platforms are you on? Where are you on a kind of like content creation? Is it just sort of take a picture and share it, or, creating video and other things like that? What are you keen to learn? So with everything growing constantly, it can be quite terrifying and overwhelming, but actually it's sort of I find it quite exciting of going, oh, well, what's new? What can I learn? What can I experiment with? And what can I kind of like improve my skills with? This is sort of like, what is digital mission? What is using digital for our church now, sort of for the Great Commission? So for me, it's using online, digital, and technology to share the gospel, build communities for Christ, and grow disciples. It's understanding the context, culture, and the modes of communication of the day to reach new audiences. So it's not about just pandering to the algorithm and just doing what society and the algorithm wants, but actually going, how can we pivot what we say? How can we pivot how we communicate the gospel to reach new audiences? Why is it important? And I think it's very easy to go, no, social media, digital, AI, all of that stuff, oh, it's really terrible. We're not going to do it, and we're not going to engage with it. As I said already, we've been given the Great Commission. We are called to go out. We need to be going to those places, and we should be using digital to equip us to do this. We're called to be salt and light. We have the responsibility to produce content that spreads love, joy, hope, that does educate and teaches people, but also entertains. Jesus was a wondrous storyteller. He used examples and he used sort of creative ways to communicate with his audiences and the people he was speaking with. And so I think we should be called to reflect that. And the 167, so 168 hours in a week. And our faith is more than just a 1-hour service. So we need to be living out in those places that we are the rest of the week. And that doesn't even just need to mean digital, but how we are in our workplaces. And I think that's for a lot of Christians, people that I know who they go to church, or they go to church on a Sunday, and then you see something online from a Friday night, and you go, those two people seem very different and things. And so actually we need to be ensuring that the stuff that we're putting out is reflective of the things that we talk about on a Sunday. So where can we do this? So this is not an exhaustive list. There are so many other places. And when we say digital, it's very easy to often say social media and that be the one place, but there are so many other aspects of digital. And it's also, so I was sort of preparing sort of as my journey up this morning, I was thinking actually there is this slight kind of blurring very often between digital mission of me as an individual going out and trying to communicate and share the gospel as an individual to people who aren't engaged, but also from church communications of how do we communicate and engage with our church community, but also how do we then kind of deviate slightly into that digital mission of how do we go out and witness in that place. So it's really, there are so many aspects of it, and so it's not just sort of one element of how do we turn this into a digital notice board. But using social media, so obviously sort of basic, and for what a lot of churches I'd recommend, Facebook, so you've got pages, groups, Messenger, you've got Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok. Oh, this is some old ones on here. Be Real, Mastodon. Mastodon? That was the sort of new replacement to Twitter when it all went downhill. Snapchat, LinkedIn, and so many others. You've got video predominant content, so such as YouTube, Vimeo, and Twitch. You've got message-based ones, so WhatsApp, Signal, Discord, sort of text messages, video chat, so more of like, again, that kind of less broadcast but more engaged. So you've got Zoom, Teams, FaceTime, WhatsApp, and Discord. And I did have, really sadly, I had Skype on there, but Skype's now been discontinued, so like the end of an era. You've also, and this then takes it slightly back to the kind of like crossing the line slightly of it being a space for you to share what's going on in the church, but you've got sort of having a website that is, if anything, I'd say more important than having a social media presence is making sure that you have a up-to-date, can be simple, but an up-to-date, informative, relatively recent photos of just what's going on at the church. You have email, telephone, and podcasts as well. So and there's so many other ways as well, and it's very much dependent on where your comfortability level lies, but also to who you're trying to reach. So how can we do this? I think the biggest challenge that we face with digital, in particular social media, is it's very easy for me to just post, I'm telling you what's going at church, come to church on Sunday, come to church on Sunday, come to church on Sunday, and that's it. And I find that really boring. What you want to do is go, come to church on a Sunday, really great service on Sunday. Oh, look, here's the team that are, doing the cleaning, or here are the ladies that, do the flowers and stuff. Share the community of your church, but also engage with others. So actually, you're not just trying to kind of, that sort of repetitive mono message, just kind of like not exciting message that you want to put out there, but actually mix it up. But also, if you've had a baptism, share photos of a baptism. If you know you've got a baptism coming up, share that it's going to happen. Then share, we had an amazing baptism. And there's so many different things that you could do, share pictures. You could do a live stream. You could do interviews afterwards and stuff. But actually, you're showing the life of the church. And you're making sure then that actually you're creating community with the content that you're putting out. Make relationships with people, so, engage with your local, so there's some cafes nearby here, so making sure that, where within our local geographical distance, who can we connect with, but also, within the sort of Baptist Union, who are my local Baptist churches that I might want to connect to? Who are, am I engaging with my association online? Am I engaging with the Baptist Union online? And finding out what's going on, but also sharing the resources that they share. But also then using it as a tool for fellowship. And again, there's sort of so much of the stuff that Patrick shared is sort of the groundwork of what you can use to share online, of sharing the stories, share the gospel, share your testimonies, share the testimonies from people in the Bible, share testimonies from people in your church, share and listen, and so that when people go, I don't agree with this, or it's always a really challenging debate when people go, oh, someone's been very rude or aggressive on a post, we should immediately delete it. But actually, is it an opportunity to have a conversation and find out where their pain point is? Because maybe they're just really hurt and just want someone to listen to them. And actually, by engaging with them, maybe they might not start coming to church, but maybe they're just sort of leaving that conversation in a better place. Use it to evangelize and share the good news. Invite people in. So yes, invite people to church, but invite people to the things that are going on in the church, and so other groups that are going on. But making it as a kind of like, we want to see you, we want to engage with you, we want you to be a part of this. And there's so much more. So the kind of good practice ideas is sort of, does this entertain, does this educate, does this inspire? Of, actually, are we mixing it up and the types of content that we're putting out there? And so it's just useful of sort of like, is this just really boring because we've repeated this for the last 5 posts that we've done? Could we mix it up? Could we reword it? Could you, if you've got a baptism coming up, could you actually share, rather than just go, come to church on Sunday, we've got baptism, go, here, look how long it takes us to fill up the pool, and you could share a time lapse of the video, or the draining it, or something, but sort of like, actually people find that stuff quite funny to watch and things, so, and then you go, come along and see the pool full, yeah. That's why I say a time lapse, so you're not having to watch it for sort of hours on end. I grew up by the sea, so we never did baptisms in the pool, we did them in the sea, so I have no real kind of like appreciation for how long and potentially how cold the water could be, because we always did our baptisms in the summer. So yeah. Think of it as digital as the front door to your church, and it's quite a, some people kind of find it a bit icky in terms of like a sales thing, but actually it's the front door, it's the window to people inviting you, and especially because many of our churches, don't have kind of like nice sort of glass opened, well-lit displays and things like that, like a lot of shops do, because they want it attractional, because they want to invite people in. So use this as a means of going, okay, the building might look quite old and Victorian, but actually we're a lovely bunch of people, and we have fun and we really want to connect with you. So think about it as your digital front door. Think about who are your community, who are the people that you want to connect with, but actually who are the people that are sort of within your church family now, and not just who are the people in the pews, but who are the people that make up the church family of the other clubs or other groups that use the building. Think about platforms you'll be on, and then what will you create? Well, I'll kind of expand upon that in a minute. Optimizing your online presence. So a couple of things to sort of just think about with, and it's not just a one-time thing to think about, but actually it's sort of to regularly reflect upon what can we do to stop the scroll. Again, it's thinking about that engaging, the entertaining, educating, interacting, building community, it's telling stories and being social. What can you do to make people stop and look at your content? Because to slightly utilize the algorithm, that actually if people are engaging with your content, the platform goes, oh, they like this. Maybe I'll show it to other people that like it. So it's always like, it's just very frustrating when churches, they won't post for a long time, and then they post something that's quite important, like, upcoming event or something, and they go, not many people engage with it, because you haven't posted for kind of like a year. And so the platform thought that no one really wanted to engage with you and connect with you. So actually being that sort of consistent and being putting content out there will help people. It will appear on more people's platforms, they engage, and therefore it's kind of feeding the cycle. But not to go too deep into or stressing about it, because actually worrying about virality of content really takes away from the priority of the message of it, rather than you end up looking at the numbers. Think about the language, so the inward and the outward message of actually sort of how does this represent us? And I think for me personally, slightly, that's often a reflection on branding, and if you've got kind of logos or colours or pictures, it's making sure that actually you are using them and not sort of having stuff that might diminish sort of that outward message, but also of the kind of like not using Christianese too much, because if someone hasn't engaged with church before, you don't want to be saying like liturgical and hermeneutics and ecclesiology and stuff like that. I've done my master's and I still don't know really what those words mean. Or at least I can't spell ecclesiology. I must have written ecclesiology sort of 200 times in my dissertation, and I have screenshots of how many times I spelt it wrong. But that can often kind of like alienate people, especially when we think about the context of the fact that not a lot of people are growing up knowing Christian language, or sort of like it is not used in practice in the same way that it has done sort of previous generations. And one-click evangelism, I'm kind of like less enthusiastic about that phrase sort of recently, but I do think it's a very important thing. So if you're up the front of the church, you've got a Sunday service, and maybe you are able to live stream it, or you've okay, we've got baptism next week. Say to your church, can everyone get their phones out and share our church post? Actually, are you all made sure that you've all liked and shared our Facebook page? Can you all like and share that post right now? Because even with, I don't know, the 30-odd people that are in this room now, to like and share a post about our baptism next week, how powerful would that be, that we're sharing that? How many more people would that reach? Because suddenly, then Facebook's going, oh, well, they clearly really like this post, and this is exciting. So actually, you really want to kind of lean into your church engaging with your communications and your digital activity as well. Because if you can share a cat meme, you can share your church's sort of upcoming events, invitation to your Christmas service, because I've had people at previous churches that I was involved in, they go, I don't know how to do that. It's like, you literally shared a funny, like seagull video or something like that. You can share the church content, because we should be proud to be like, to be sharing that content. And actually, there's no responsibility of me to have to write anything other than looking forward to next week. So there's no sort of pressure of going, what if I'm not going to word it right? Or what if I'm, just maybe it's not going to quite sound like me. It's coming from the church. You're just sort of liking and sharing it. So I do think it is really important that we still encourage our churches to do that. So Luke 14:28, for which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? And that's not to say, right, we're going to think now, it's January, we're going to think now all the things that we want to do exactly, all the types of content that we're going to do on all the platforms. It's not about sort of the first week of January planning it all out, but regularly, strategically, and appropriately for your context, your skills, your team, your budget, thinking about how we're going to do this. So it is really important to build a strategy. Think about your audience. Try to understand who you're going to reach. Know the platforms that they're on. Know the trends and the habits. So if your church is in the middle of rural Devon and it is a predominantly sort of older audience, you are not going to be thinking about, well, how can we do stuff on TikTok? Because that is not going to be your audience particularly. Though I still have this sort of dream of somehow getting a bunch of grands and sort of teaching all of those skills that your gran would teach you, or sort of that was, how to make soup from scratch, or how to fix a button. I think that would be really cool. So, if anyone wants to start that, doing it on TikTok and the platforms where those young people are, who very much then not going to know how to do those things. But of knowing actually what is right for us. So there's no pressure to be on TikTok if that's not right for you. Also knowing the habits. So actually, if people are on a platform every day, maybe you want to be thinking about what can we post every day. Thinking about your calendar. So building a content calendar will help you to organize. And thinking about the content, so offering diverse audience and platform-related content. So again, if you're thinking about TikTok, you don't want to be posting very text-heavy or sort of screenshots of just text, because actually that doesn't translate to how the audiences engage with those platforms. So think about your goal. So I should say as well, I have a much better explained written guide to creating a strategy. So don't feel, oh my gosh, she's gone through this super quickly. I have a much more comprehensive guide to doing this that you will have access to afterwards. But so the sort of the goal of it. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to specifically fundraise for something, and we're trying to make, create fellowship, discipleship. Are we just trying to reach more people? Who are we trying to reach, and how are we going to do it? So actually, if you just want to engage with your local 2-mile radius of your church, don't stress about trying to reach people the other parts of the country and stuff. What you really want to be doing is looking at the numbers for, are they local, and seeing names of people that you know in your local community. And it really helps you to kind of have a more balanced approach when the numbers just aren't there, or you're just sort of going, it doesn't feel like we're growing, but actually people are seeing you a lot more rather than loads of thousands of people now following you. Audience. So, realistically, we can't actually reach everyone, and we shouldn't do, because actually I don't think, trying to do everyone means we don't reach anyone particularly sort of personably or appropriately, contextually. So have a focus on who you do and want to connect with. Have avatars, so have kind of those hypothetical audience profiles. Can this make sense in my document? But sort of just thinking about who is it's not even ideal person, but just who is this sort of representative of the group of people we're trying to connect with. And again, what platforms are they on? How do they communicate? When are they online? So organisation, so who are you? Who can you rely on? Again, it's very easy to look at the big churches online and panic and think, they've got lights and, multi-cameras, and they're doing stuff all of the time, and they're using Photoshop and things, and it's all looking very professional and stuff. That's okay. Look, think about who you have, and actually who you can rely on, because this isn't just a one post and that's it job. This is sort of regularly and consistently putting content out there. And what skills do they have? So if you've got someone who's a particularly good writer, or someone who's, you could have a retired gentleman who's actually absolutely amazing photographer. Maybe you could utilize his skills. Think about the resources that you have. And also, there are so many tools now that do not cost a lot of money. So there's Unsplash, Pixabay for photo and video content. You've got Canva for actually creating content. I've done a number of webinars on them. And then you've got things like Hootsuite and Buffer for content planning. So thinking about your calendar, sort of what's going on in the year, and break it down to year, seasonal, monthly, weekly. What's going on that we can address and we can sort of use more broadly? How can that apply to us? And while scheduling is really, really helpful, don't forget to go and engage in real time. Mix up your content, so do short and long form content, photos, videos, graphics, reels, trending stuff, evergreen, ephemeral content, links. Faces are always good. Show your church. You can share to other stuff, so blogs, articles, or sort of just links to things from your church. But also have a space where people can gather online. So if it's sort of you've got a Facebook page, maybe make a group where people can share. And that doesn't need to be super public. You can make it kind of private, but actually where people can feel that they can connect beyond just the Sunday. But finally, try things out. Give yourself grace that this isn't a kind of, I have to be perfect immediately. Do a few platforms well. Better to do one or two well and build community and feel comfortable and not overwhelmed with them, but be consistent, so regular. And that doesn't mean you need to post something every day, but actually that you are sort of just once a week at least putting stuff out there to engage with people. It's social, so talk to people, ask people questions, engage with them, have fun. I think that's sort of, very often we don't sort of like doing that in the church. The magic tricks are really cool, and I think that is a wonderful demonstration that would work online, as just doing stuff like that is so cool. Again, it's church, it's the body of Christ. I'm not saying this is a replacement for what we do in the building. It is just an arm or a foot of everything that we do. So in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Again, action, do stuff, share. Are you ready? Thank you for letting me speak.